Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
And welcome back, everybody. She is somebody who has an ability to give you answers, give you clarity, maybe even give you closure as a medium, but takes it a step further. She is an intuitive medium that goes deep in terms of what she shows. This is just a piece of what she does. And she's back with us. Noelle Deane joins us here on the program. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I'm feeling very much connected to my heart right now, actually. So feeling a little, just a touch raw and a little vulnerable in a good way.
Hmm.
In a good way.
Seconds before we got on here, I shared with you the phone call I just got, and somebody who I'm close with. We lost touch in the last couple of years, but we worked together for many, many years. Like brother and sister, passed away. And even before you even said to me, "What's going on?" And I didn't say a word. You had no idea. It was just, I said, "All right, you ready to go?" So you intuitively picked up on something was up. Literally, I got off the phone maybe 15 minutes ago with somebody who let me know. Um, People ask this question, and not that I need to um, do this, but when somebody passes, should you wait time before you talk to a medium?
That's such an interesting question because I spent a long time listening to podcasts, from other mediums, and I actually don't know the answer to that. I think it depends on the loved one. When people contact me to get a mediumship reading, I actually use my check-in process, as we've talked about here, to ask, is it right for me to connect with that person? Is that person, the person in spirit, is that person available? There are times I've heard, like when people pass away or transition, that they're around for a little while, like their soul is hanging around until, let's say, they have a funeral service or a celebration, and then they go off and do their work and then come back at some point. I have yet to find somebody unavailable, but I do always ask. I have a process that I go through which helps me have a lot of confidence in doing that. But I have, connected with people who've passed, like just a few weeks ago. I'll be doing a session today with somebody who passed a month ago. So I don't think there's a hard and fast answer for that. I think you might feel when it feels right. And I think that person in spirit has a sense of you. So what I do understand is if they feel like them coming around will interfere with your grieving process, they won't.
Okay. All right. And maybe that's why I've heard just by some that you should wait. Maybe that's the reason why. It has nothing to do with who you're trying to contact, but it's my belief, and this is, and I shared with you after my mom passed 5 years ago, that I feel her energy. Like it's like it never left. It's almost bizarre. I've never felt it like that. And to me, in knowing psychic mediums in that area for like 25 years, that's my validation of how you could potentially connect with somebody who has passed away, because their energy is around. The body leaves, but the energy's here. You feel that?
Absolutely. I have a couple, so I actually recently heard somewhere that part of why you miss somebody who passed away more at times is that their spirit or their energy is actually right there with you. So you're feeling like a visit with their energy, and maybe it makes you feel the pain of their transition even more. And so that is part of grief. But the way I look at it, Steve, honestly, is when people in my family have passed, and I've only been this much of a medium for X number of years, although I've been doing it for a long time, but for myself, much shorter period of time. I don't want to suffer through the severing of the relationship, like that person is gone or that person is unavailable. If I could have a wish for everybody, it would be when somebody that you love leaves their body, that you find ways to feel that connection and not have to suffer through the severity of absolutely cutting off that connection, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I know that you're big on energy. Everything is energy. And sometimes it's suggested that we clear our energy just because things get
Mm,
stuck in all of that. And I've heard from others that they're afraid to do it because I don't want to lose my connection with my loved one. But that's not what's going to happen. It's just going to
yeah.
free things up for you. Your connection is your connection. Interesting what you said, and I never thought of it then that way, that you miss somebody more because they are around you. You don't know they are, but their energy is more prominent at that moment. That being
Mhm.
said, why? Why is it more? Why is it, maybe last Tuesday, you felt something, and why does
Mhm.
the energy sounds like it ebb and flows? What's going on there?
There's a world of stuff going on in that. So first, I just want to mention, and I was very connected with my cat, Tiger. Like he pretty much sat in this room with any work that I did as a therapist, as a medium, and we were very connected. He passed like 2 years ago, and it was so amazing to me to feel the energy of my house felt so different. I never realized that, like that each of us here, like I'll notice when my husband's gone, like when he travels, there are times when the house feels a bit emptier and more of my energy can fill it. But it was very interesting when Tiger left and I was like, oh my goodness, like the house felt sort of drier and like less friendly. So we feel like all of our energy in our home is a makeup of who's here. So maybe when they're visiting and you feel that energy again, it's a reminder of like, oh my God, I miss this and how hard that is in those moments. But I also, in my experience, am noticing that people in spirit or animals in spirit, I think they can, sorry, I don't think, my impression is they have like a bit of a boundary. So they can come in close and we really feel their energy, but they can also stay back and we really kind of don't, or not very much. Like I can always feel like presence around, and there are times I thought my grandfather wasn't coming around at all. And I'm not judging that. I'm not asking him to come. I wait for people to come and visit me. They have stuff to do. I get that. But I connected with him on a special retreat I gave myself. And he basically said he was kind of afraid to get too close to me because his energy was so strong. He was afraid it would hurt me. So that might be, there's, it's such a complicated thing, honestly.
Yeah.
Um,
I want to seg into signs
please.
if that's possible, because now I'm
Yeah.
thinking I'm not overthinking. I deal in facts. That's how I look at life.
Yeah.
There's of course emotion and things connected to it, but um, I think signs are there if you ask for them or you
Yeah.
interpret them. And the person that I knew that just passed within 24 hours of the anniversary of when my father passed when I
Mm.
was 21. Now, if I rewind that up, um, back, talk about signs, and I don't, felt a, I've never felt the presence of my father like I do my mother.
Gotcha.
However, this is weird. I'm telling you right now, Noelle, because you're making me think. I just went and visited college with my son on the passing of my father, his anniversary. Rewind, I went to a retreat because you said the word retreat, and the message there was forgive your father. Well, the day I left the retreat would have been his birthday. I didn't plan that out. That's kind of just how it went. Weird. So I don't know what the connection is with this person that just passed around the same time that he had passed back in the day. Um, if I piece it, if I think about it, maybe something will come up, or maybe you'll come up with something. I don't know. But it's when you look at these things, and I'm not looking for it. These are the facts. That was his date of birth. That's when the retreat ended. I didn't. I just signed up for a retreat. I have no idea. It didn't even hit me until the retreat was over. I'm like, oh wait, I'm leaving tomorrow. That would have been his birthday. It's been so long that, I'm not mindful
Yeah.
of every date. Um, but signs. Tell me about signs. Are they all there? Are they always there? And we just need to be aware.
Well, I think the big thing is the paying attention. Like you could have let your dad's anniversary just pass by, and it sounds like maybe you have at times. And so paying attention to things, I think we can notice a lot more. There's a lot more richness, like a presence of the spiritual world and people that love us around us. But we do have to notice that. And signs can be subtle and they can be right in your face. One of the I mean, I was talking to somebody recently who were having cardinals visit in a way that they've never experienced cardinals. I have a friend whose daughter shows up as a hummingbird, and that might sound common, but she was sharing an experience where her husband was talking to somebody and they had both lost a child, and this hummingbird flies up and is like right in his face, her husband's face, like in a way that was like almost uncomfortable, like right there. So there are the really obvious things, and then there are subtle things. Like I sometimes I notice on Facebook people post pictures, and I'm like, look at that orb. Like an orb is like a round circle of white light or blue light or green light, and that is a way to see the presence of somebody in spirit. Now, there's also sunspots and other things your camera can play kind of tricks on you with. But I have the experience, so you can see my background looks pretty white right now. There are
Mm-hmm.
times when I'm doing mediumship and my wall is actually blue, and suddenly it's intensely blue. And I worked with somebody who was trying to feel a connection to their loved one, and you would think she was turning on and off some kind of dimmer switch in her background. I watched it happen actually. I'm hoping to post it on my website someday. Just as a sign, her loved one was connected to electronics and computers and uses that to manipulate cameras so you can see at times people's backgrounds changing color. I actually see this pretty often with people when we're doing mediumship. I've tried the experiment of, okay, please bring me an orb, and I sit there with myself on Zoom. They don't always do it for me, but I think I'm a little orb
Wow.
greedy, but there are different ways. But when you're really in grief, it's hard to pick up on these signs. It's hard to notice a subtle feeling of somebody's energy in the room. Grief can be a real barrier.
I
So
I
give
I
yourself
I
grace.
I
Yeah.
totally agree with you, but I believe also it's it's life. We got so
Yes.
much going on, social media, technology, three jobs, and everything's going around. We don't even take the time to sit,
Yeah.
sit in silence. It's my I have a friend. Um, she's not a therapist or anything like that. She wrote a book. She's on her second book. It's called Sitting in Silence, and
Mm.
it's basically about what it says, but it's pictures of park benches in beautiful locations that she's
Oh,
put
wow.
together to encourage people to just think, sit and think. We don't do it. And
Mm.
when you do it, you'll see signs. You'll see things will make sense.
Hmm.
Orbs. An orb can be a show of energy, can it not? It
Hmm.
doesn't have to be somebody who passed away and they're trying to show you something, right?
Fair enough. I mean,
I
I don't know exactly.
okay.
That's been my experience, but it's an endless world of possibility with these
Yeah, I
kinds of
mean,
things. So, yeah.
I've seen orbs. Like I went to a cacao ceremony, which is chocolate from the tropical rainforest, and it was a meditation, and it was very powerful. Um, even to the point where people were crying in the room. It was about 15 people. Never did anything like that before. It was like giving you clarity on things. And
Mm-hmm.
somebody just, while everybody was on the mats, just laying down, um, somebody just took a picture, took a couple of them. And there are orbs all over, like flying above everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm a skeptic like anyone else. And I can punch holes. All right, yeah, you put a filter on it, but it was just somebody random taking a picture. There was nothing going on. It was an innocent click, 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 done. Um, at that moment, I believe there was a collective, very strong energy in the room, and maybe it
Mm-hmm.
uh, manifested, materialized as orbs. I don't know. I don't have an answer.
Neither do I.
And
I mean, I would go with that impression if I were you.
I don't think there was any reflection of light.
Mm,
And you're never going
mhm,
to have the same situation. The difference between here and here of taking a picture, not everybody's going to hold the phone in the exact same spot, but the orbs were still there. So I
mm.
don't know. Um, Other thoughts on signs? You know, people say, I just saw the red cardinal, the hummingbird, all of that. Is it okay to just say, show me a sign, ask for a sign?
Some people do that on a regular basis. Like if they're looking to make a big decision, they might say, if you want me to do this, please show me this. And you have to kind of use your intuition on those things to pick up on signs that are also potential for your loved one to bring in. Like if I said, please show me a cardinal, just I don't ask for signs in that way. But if I did and I said, please show me a cardinal, we don't actually have cardinals in San Diego, but there's a good chance somebody might send me a card. And maybe that would be actually a good way to ask for a sign because effort would actually have to be made for me to see that.
You,
So that could be a
yeah,
way. Yeah.
you think like I think because it's perfectly fine if a cardinal supports somebody and that's a sign from their loved one, whatever it is.
Mhm.
Wonderful. That works for you. Then that's great. I
Mhm.
I need specifics. So like you say, I'm in San Diego. You know what? Show me a cardinal. As I sign, I would even ask. I really would. I need to be specific. Or like I've shared this before. Signs from my mom.
Mhm.
She always send something connected to her that's very specific, whether it's her date of birth, whether it's her name, not a super common name, but it'll show up. And it was the second time I got a sign from her, and I'm only going to share this because we're talking about it and asked for a sign. This is 2 years ago, a year and a half. Um, my daughter had to go to the hospital and they didn't have a room for her. So now she's in the emergency area. Not the best situation. And I said to the nurse, what do you think? She goes, it could be a day. She's just going to be kind of in transition. I'm like, oh boy. So I just vibe my mom, like, Mom, please do me something.
Mm.
Show me a sign or just move it forward. 30 minutes later, the nurse comes out. Hey, we found a room for your daughter. I'm like, oh, thank you. But that, and anybody would say, well, coincidence. I get it. And I agree. But then it goes deeper. About a half hour to an hour later, I find out that the nurse assigned to my daughter has the same first and last name as my mother. You can't, well,
You
like,
can't make that up. Yeah.
no, I mean, first and last, and her maiden name. And I will say her maiden name is, a little generic. However, pair the two together, come on, chances of, but then go another layer deeper. So I see my daughter a couple of days later, and she says, yeah, I saw this lady, and she mentioned my mom's name, and like, oh yeah, and I'm thinking to myself, I already know, what the nurse's name is. I said, yeah, that's your nurse, and she says, no, that's not the nurse. That's just a lady that comes in to help, and she just checks on us, and had the same first name as my mom. So it was two people in the same hospital, in the same all around then, and the day started because I valet parked my car. That's what you have to do at the hospital. And I had a rose quartz, that's my mom's name,
Mm.
hanging from my rear view. I had just gotten it. I was on a trip, saw some friends, went into a gem shop. And the valet parker said, oh my gosh, thank you so much. What a great idea. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, I love rose quartz and I'm going to put one on my rear view. The guy was like 22 years old. And I said, oh, well, great. And I reached into my pocket and I had an extra one and I handed it to him.
Um,
And when I walked into the hospital, that's when this all took place with the names. So not a red cardinal, but very specific, very specific. I asked for a sign. That's my point here. Ask for a sign, but be aware.
Yeah, and look, you were so in the flow that you had this extra rose quartz in your pocket.
What's the
This guy
chances?
mentions it, and then you give him that. I mean, just like me saying the word retreat, or there are just things that are happening kind of constantly, especially maybe at times when we need it, like when somebody is having a
Perhaps.
health crisis and we need some extra help. I'm just constantly amazed by the power and the pervasiveness of all of this stuff. And, I think we also want to be mindful of like the cynic in us because we can keep doubting. But when you get what feels like irrefutable evidence of things that constantly come up, at some point you just have to be like, okay, I give. There really is a connection. My mom really is here. She really does show me stuff. And when you're feeling maybe low or you're having a hard day like today, you could ask her to bring her presence in even closer to you, and you might feel more
Hmm.
of her presence. You might feel her energy there. I was doing some work around the house with somebody that we hired to help me, and we just started talking, and I just had this sense of his mother, who I didn't know had passed. And then I just get this visual of like his shoulders or something. So I say, and I get a lot of stuff all the time, but I knew that meant something. So I say it to him. And just as I said it to him, I'm getting confirmation chills just talking about it.
Hmm.
At that moment when I said it to him, he felt the energy in that area. And the visual she showed me was her hugging him. So he knew that was his mom's energy hugging him in that moment. And we both kind of cried a little because it was just so touching. So
Hmm.
talking about them, thinking about them, and maybe suspending your disbelief that it's too good to be true, that they actually still are here with us,
Sure.
because we are all conditioned to do that severing in our mind. And that's just a perspective. That doesn't have to be everybody's perspective.
Totally get what you're saying. And do you think that there's synchronicity? Do you
Oh.
believe that everything is happening for a reason? We're here today talking. There's probably a reason. We haven't figured it out yet, but maybe there's a reason. I don't know. I really don't know. But the more I look at this thing called energy, speak with people like you, the pieces start coming together. Sometimes the pieces floating out here and you gotta, wait. It's not like
Mhm.
you're struggling to put the square peg round hole thing, but the pieces kind of go together when you maybe take a step back, sit in silence maybe and listen, for what's going on.
Yes. I actually don't believe any longer in coincidence.
Me too.
I
Me
just
too.
don't anymore. It just doesn't make any sense to me because so many things line up. And I agree, when you take a step back, when you're in the middle of something, you don't have a whole lot of perspective. I mean, I'm hoping to become more that way, to see things from my earthly experience and then also to see it from this higher spiritual perspective. So if something
Sure.
really rough is happening, I can see the value of it, or why, like that it's being done for me and not to me in the moment, not just in retrospect. To me, that
Hmm.
is the power of how I want to live my life more like that.
Would you say that, and I know some people, the skeptics, will say, oh, the whole for me and not to me. Um, would you say that there's a lesson in it all? There's something
Mm.
that there's a takeaway. It's not, and if it's something that's tragic or hurtful or gives you grief, yes, it's rough. I get it. But there is a reason. And maybe you won't ever know the reason. I don't have that answer. I don't know. But part of the plan,
I don't want to minimize anybody's pain,
I agree.
like there's that.
Yep.
But if we all look back on our lives, we see that we sometimes only are willing to change because of pain or to avoid further pain. And we are here, from everything I am learning, we're here to learn. Like, in some ways that might seem pointless, in some ways that might seem very, purposeful. But, and when we're in the spirit world, from everything I've experienced, there is no, oh my God, that was awful. I can't heal from that. I can't believe you put me through. It was like, that was actually a huge lesson and I learned from it. But I think that's hard to say for somebody else's experience. So I try to be sensitive about that, because I would hate for somebody to say that about my experience, especially when it's fresh, because that just feels hurtful and insensitive.
I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
Yes, and we're not minimizing anything.
Yeah.
Um, but maybe that license to take a look at it in a different way, and
Yeah.
maybe to understand it in a different way. It's not like you're trying to push it off. You know, let's say somebody passed and you're not trying to come up with an excuse, but maybe there's another way to look at it. After time. After
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
Yeah. And when somebody close to you that you really do have a connection with, even if you haven't talked to them in many years, and they cross, you may feel them or be open to feeling them. If you get stuck in your grief, it's going to be harder to feel them. But like with your friend, I think I felt her around because I was feeling tearful. I got head to toe like confirmation chills or presence chills, I sometimes call them, which I feel when somebody's energy is like right here with me. So maybe ask her for a sign or sit in
Mm,
quiet and ask her to
mm.
come in close and see if you feel her. You're very intuitive and you're open-minded about things. And my tip for this week coincides with this beautifully. And some of my tips are food related, but the idea is now think of a jumbo marshmallow, not like a freeze-dried in your hot cocoa kind of marshmallow.
Big Stay Puff, big fat Stay Puff, fresh marshmallow.
Yeah, the kind that you want in your s'mores.
Gotcha.
Be the marshmallow.
Hmm. And the marshmallow can absorb.
Actually, the marshmallow doesn't really absorb. The marshmallow gets impressed upon and then it bounces back. Sorry, I should have qualified that. I mean, you could look at it as absorbing too. I don't want to take away from that. The way I look at it is I get
I see.
impressions. Like
I
a
see.
memory comes to me, an idea comes to me. That's an impression. So I try to be like when I'm in a reading, I'm trying to be head to toe awareness, to be the marshmallow in every way. Every little ping that I feel, or high pitched, low pitched, silence, eye twitch, pain here, thought, memory, everything is information. So I'm trying to be the ultimate in marshmallows. So
I got
when
it.
you have a chance and you're feeling maybe especially tearful, like maybe she's right there with you, give yourself a few moments to be the marshmallow and then just see what comes in and let yourself cry. Let it go through you. This is something to grieve. It's a change. And
Well,
it sucks. It's
I
hard.
will
It hurts.
I will say you had no idea when we
Yeah.
first got together, 30 minutes ago. Yeah, I mean, there was not even you just picked up on it. And I believe that when that person was doing work in your house, that you picked up on it then.
Yeah.
It's not like somebody's walking around with a sign, that something's going on in my life, but well, that's your intuition. Um,
Yeah.
wow. How does
Yeah.
somebody find you?
Oh, and I'm sorry, I forgot to say my disclaimer. So first, my website is connectingwithnoelle.com. I have videos also, and I'm on Instagram at Connecting with Noelle. And I do want to say the information presented on this podcast is educational in nature and provided only as general information and not medical or psychological advice, and nor is it a substitute for seeking licensed healthcare services. And I'm available at connectingwithnoelle@gmail.com. And also on my website, you can browse through the services that I provide and see if it feels right to work together. I provide a variety of things, and I will only work with somebody if it really feels like it's in their best interest to do so. So I think I'm safe in that way. And I have a lot of love to give. And also, I want to support other people to feel the love of their loved ones more and more and more. And my life would be completely worthwhile if that was the only thing I did.
Well,
So.
appreciate you. I appreciate your insight. We didn't even get into all of your credentials as a marriage and family therapist for decades and healing arts practitioner. You, if you were just an intuitive, that's fantastic. You run way deeper than that, and it's super cool. I do want to tell everybody too, connectingwithnoelle.com is a website. Noelle is Noelle. Do I have that right?
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, just checking. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not intuition. Those are just facts. Um,
Those
thank,
really are.
thank you so much for today. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you, Steve. Take
Thanks.
care.
Thanks. We'll be right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
Mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.